Hey folks, this is Kelani. I've got a good one for you today, especially if you've been losing gold since the expansion started. It seems like almost no matter what you do or try, it's been a lot harder to gather up as many gold coins in BFA when compared to Legion at the very least, but that's not really too surprising. The Legion class halls were basically a printing press for gold, but follower missions haven't really been worth too much so far in the current expansion, until now. There's a new gold mission coming in patch 8.1, but it's not quite as straightforward as just crossing your fingers for the right mission to pop up. You are going to have to do just a little bit of legwork to get your hands on these goodies. When patch 8.1 goes live, your map will have another little icon on it, right about where your island expedition table is. That icon will show you the progress for the current island expedition weekly quest, but what's this? A new reward to go along with the typical artifact power? A treasure map! So it should come as no surprise that the treasure map can give you a gold mission which is worth 5,000 gold if you manage to complete it, with a 1500 artifact power bonus reward if you can nab that as well. Sadly, that does seem to be the only worthwhile gold mission coming in patch 8.1, but there could be a few surprises waiting for us later on down the line, who knows. And before you light those torches, or sharpen those pitchforks, yes, I know it's tied to island expeditions. I know they aren't exactly the most loved content right now, but patch 8.1 will be making quite a lot of changes to how islands work. I've been playing around with them quite a bit on the PTR, and honestly, I think they've done pretty well for themselves. If islands were like this when the game launched, they might have become some players' favourite content. I'll get back to these changes in a little while, because that treasure map does have a few other missions it can reward. Now the first one is obviously that 5,000 gold reward with the 1500 AP bonus. That's the one that I got, but there's also a 2,000 artifact power reward with a 1500 AP bonus, so a total of 3,500 if you can 200% that mission. Not a bad deal when you consider you're also getting 2,500 AP for completing the island weekly to begin with. But there's also one more mission I've seen which rewards the new currency used to purchase Azurite armor in patch 8.1. I haven't seen too many people talk about that one, so maybe it's not as well known, but that mission rewards 17 Titan residue, whatever you want to call it, which isn't really a lot in the grand scheme of things when you consider a random 385 piece costs 165 Titan residue. But for such a restricted currency to also have a mission tied to those treasure maps, that's definitely an interesting piece of information. Hopefully the amount will increase by the time this goes live, but that mission also has the 1500 AP bonus. So you can get a boatload of artifact power, a handful of gold, or a few slivers of this new currency. There might be more out there too, or more might get added in at a later date, but it looks like the Island Expedition weekly quest just got a whole lot more interesting. Bear in mind that this quest is character based and resets weekly, so even if you don't get the gold mission the first time around, you can always try again and again on any number of alts, or try again next week. This might be the next alt army gold farm, providing of course you can get your followers up to speed. Personally, I think this could have been handled a little differently. These maps could have taken you to a variety of islands outside of the island expedition system. Grab a handful of friends, take your map to your friendly neighbourhood fisherman, or maybe a bit of a bigger boat, and off you go to an uncharted island filled to the brim with goodies and loot. Throw in a bunch of monsters and you could create a pretty cool little scenario which has the potential to change every week. Sounds a lot more exciting than a follower mission to me, but I guess it's also nice that we're getting some worth put back into the mission tables. If it's going to be part of the game, I may as well want to interact with it more than once a year. But what about the islands, Kelani? I hate islands. Now I have to run them every week again. Well, you don't really have to, but if you want these treasure maps, you're going to have to get a few done at the very least, yes. Which hopefully won't quite be the boring drudge you're thinking it will be. The dev team has made quite a few changes to the island expeditions to make them a little more interesting and a lot less mindless AoE grindfest. You might have already noticed from watching me run around, but there's far less trash on the islands now. The endless hordes of crocolisks and other basic fodder mobs have more or less disappeared. You can still find them here and there, but you will actually be able to run around and avoid pulling monsters now. They tend to keep to little groups more often than not, with a rare smack bang in the middle, so instead of monsters absolutely everywhere, you're going to have to go hunting for them just a little bit more. The amount of rares you'll run into has gone up quite dramatically too. Overall, these changes make it so instead of pulling as many non-elites as you can and AoEing them all down, you're more likely going to to be taking on a rare or two with a handful of other monsters. You can still run around and gather up as many mobs as you can if you really want to, but it doesn't seem to be all too efficient anymore when you have so many rares you can go after. Honestly, if you go from rare to rare while completing events, I think islands are actually faster with these changes, even if you're kind of killing less monsters overall. I think this is a great change because it leads you towards getting more rewards, because the optimal playstyle to gather your Azurite overlaps a lot better in patch 8.1 with the activities that help fill up your potential loot table. Instead of farming monsters that don't give you anything, you're going to be killing rares which hopefully will. It's also easier to avoid mobs you're not interested in, so you can go hunting for the rares you want some loot from. With that being said, there seems to be some pretty big incentives to mine more Azurite. Wherever you find rare monsters, you'll typically find them guarding sacks, chests and mining nodes as per usual, but there's also some larger Azurite mining nodes randomly spotted around now as well. As far as we know, mining still doesn't contribute to the reward structure, so that is a little weird, but if all you're interested in is quick islands, be sure to mine up everything you can when you clear an area of rares, and you should be done even faster than before. The other major change that honestly spiced things up the most for us while running islands on the PTR is that there seems to be a larger variety of monsters on any given island. Every island we ran also changed things up a little bit. We saw Tolvia, Mogu, Sorok, old god minions, elementals, Azurite monsters, trolls. It didn't really feel like we ran the same island over and over again, even when we got the same map. The monsters were shifted around. I was pretty surprised that I didn't get bored after 2 islands, so that's got to be a good sign, right? We also had more events happen every island we were on. I don't recall seeing the Azurite event, by the way, so that's an interesting little side note, but we did see a portal almost every island. We had invasions, portals, and plenty of the new events that have been added in. One new type of event is called the Azurite Extractor. You can find an extractor somewhere on the island, and when you activate it, it will continually provide you with Azurite every 15 seconds or so. If the opposite faction manages to take the extractor before you, you can destroy it and rebuild it for your faction, but obviously the opposite faction can do the same thing. I believe the idea was to check back on the extractor every so often to make sure it stays safe, but the amount of Azurite it passively provides isn't really that great. Certainly not enough to warrant running halfway across the island just to get it back for your faction. But if you happen to run into it again, maybe give it a little whack and slap that Horde logo all over it. The other new type of event is called Azurite Ruptures. You'll wander upon another Azurite Extractor, except this one behaves a little differently. When you click on it, it will start drilling just like the other one, except it starts off a little wave of monsters as well. Each time you click on the extractor, a new wave spawns. This eventually culminates in a boss type monster, which rewards you with a pretty hefty chunk of Azurite, so these events are usually worth doing, and it's a little different from the extractor itself. What's really cool is that when either faction triggers one of these events, it will broadcast across the island, so if your enemy gets to the extractors first, you'll know about it, so you can decide to try and stop them, or continue on your way and focus on some other sources of Azurite. And then we also have 2 new maps coming with patch 8.1, one of which has been playable this week on the PTR. Havenswood is a fairly small map, made even smaller by the fact that a good chunk of it lies on top of a cliff, which you don't seem to be able to get to. There's a cool looking mansion up there, but I guess it's off limits for now. We do have a little town area, a wooded section off to the side, and a little coastal area as well, so plenty of room for a variety of monsters to hunt down and slaughter. It is a little harder to tell that the monster density has decreased on this map due to its size, but it seems to work very well with the changes to island expeditions. I think the long-term success of island expeditions, if it's going to have any, will definitely depend on some new maps once in a while, providing of course that these changes make island expeditions enjoyable, or at the very least bearable for the majority of players. I think by reducing the amount of trash monsters you come across while increasing the number of rares you'll see each island is definitely a good step forward for the raw gameplay of islands. You'll have to stay on your toes a little more because rares aren't always a walk in the park, especially if you decide to pull 2 or 3, which means you should stay more engaged with the island experience. You also won't have to kill everything in sight because there's more room to move around, so you can pick and choose which rare packs to go after. With rare killing encouraged even more, you should also see more rewards from islands in general, which should feel a lot better than getting nothing time and time again. More events should help keep things a little more interesting, especially when multiple events trigger on the same island. The variety of monsters is also a really nice touch. There's some new monsters added in there as well, and I expect to see more monsters and more rewards added as time goes on. And if absolutely all else fails, if you just couldn't give 2 clucks about island expeditions, well, at least there's a little more incentive to run a handful of them every week. Getting your 2500 AP might not have been enough, but what about that super shiny sparkly treasure map? Everyone loves treasure maps. Get yourself a handful of gold, or more AP, or even some of that cool new Titan stuff, but please, try to keep an open mind when you head into Islands in patch 8.1. Who knows, you might even enjoy one or two with all of these changes in place, but not if you go in already hating the whole system. But that's what we know about the Island Expedition changes so far, including the new treasure map reward and what kinds of missions you can expect from it. Will you go back to completing your island weekly quest with these new rewards? How do you feel about the Island Expedition changes from what you've seen so far? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.